Welcome to the No Filter podcast. Hi, I'm Mia Friedman. A few days after I gave birth to my daughter, my husband walked into the room where I was on the phone talking to a girlfriend while I was breastfeeding, and I was describing in graphic detail some aspect of the birth process, maybe all of it. And while Jason heard me talking, his eyes went wide, and when I got off the phone, he was like, "Who on earth were you talking to?" I was like, dude, it could have been like one of a dozen people at least. And it was such an interesting moment because he couldn't imagine who I might want to share such an intimate story with. And I couldn't understand why he would not know how many people I thought it was appropriate to share that with. And it was a little bit like the confusion that we have when he comes home after seeing his friends and he can't answer a single basic question that I have about them or their lives. So I'll be like, hey, how's Jack handling that divorce? Or how's Joe's new baby? Or, you know, is Martin still moving overseas? And he'll just look at me blankly because somehow men can learn less about each other's lives in 2 hours than women can download from each other in 20 seconds. Because that's what female friendship is. And my friends, like yours, I'm sure, are everything to me. They're my light and my safe place and my laughter and my comfort and my cheer squad and my pity party, and they are one of the great, great joys of my life. And my guest today is Kayleen Schaefer, who's written a book all about female friendship, and it's called Text Me When You Get Home. And I thought that was such a great title, and I know that every woman who's ever been out with a girlfriend after dark will understand that there are multiple interpretations of that title. So female friendship is really having a moment, not just in our real lives, but in popular culture as well. And so I wanted to talk to Kayleen about her book and about why female friendship is such a powerful life force among women. Here's Kayleen. Was there one event or a series of events that made you sit down and decide to write this book?
I'm in my early 30s, and I was thinking about my life and thinking how I used to be competitive with women, and I used to, view them as like, oh, well, if she gets something, I won't get it. That was just what I thought. It's not correct, but that's how I was brought up. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and that's just the way that I grew up. And then I realized when I was in my early 30s that wasn't my life anymore, that the people I depended on most for my daily sense of well-being and joy were my female friends. And so I wanted to write about that, the importance of that relationship. And I also thought that a lot of women felt that way, but that there was nothing we were being told that. No one was saying that. There weren't any books that said, you were right to feel this connected to your friends. These are just as important a relationship as you have with anyone else. So I wanted to say that.
You're kind of an unlikely author of a book about female friendship because you write about how you were very affected by watching Mean Girls as a teenager, and then you worked at a men's magazine and you were sort of a cool girl or one of the guys.
Yeah, I thought I tried to be. I thought that was the way I wanted to be. I really dismissed other women in a way I'm embarrassed about now, but I just thought, oh no, I want to like what the guys like. I want to talk about what the guys want to talk about. I want to, deny every part of me that's girly and likes nail polish and glitter, as that's not cool, and I want to be a cool girl. And so, that was a journey to get where I am now, for sure.
Also, you write in the book that thinking about getting married and realizing that you weren't ready to get married when you were in a relationship impacted how you felt about female friendship. How so?
Well, I think the other thing, in addition to viewing women as competitive, I also had this idea that these friendships were disposable. And I think that that's not uncommon, at least here in the U.S. This feeling that you transition from your best friend to your spouse or your romantic partner. It's sort of like a passing of the bonds, basically. And I did feel that way. And I felt like the most important relationship that I was looking for was supposed to be this one with my romantic partner, which led me to ignore some of the bonds with women until I realized, like, oh, maybe that's not me. Maybe I don't want that.
There's even that sort of idea that you're my best friend that you're meant to say to your romantic partner.
Yeah. I feel like I've been saying this and I truly do believe it, but I do feel like some women are like, you're wrong. But I don't love when women call their romantic partners their best friends, because I think, of course, you guys should be really good friends. And of course, you should respect each other as friends do. But why does it have to be the same person? Why can't you have your best friend, and why can't you also have your romantic partner? Because then you put less on each relationship and you get more support. But I do feel like being like, when I do say that, I think some women are like, I don't know. I still want to marry my best friend.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that one of the reasons that I see a lot of women be very disappointed in their romantic relationships is that they don't fill every need, and that they don't get that level of intimacy from their romantic partner, particularly in a heterosexual relationship, that they do from their female friends. And as soon as I kind of, articulated that I get so much intimacy from my girlfriends, that actually made my marriage better, because I stopped wanting him to be everything.
Yes, that's exactly how I feel too. I think that's just a lot of pressure to put on anyone. Even if you just try to make your best friend deal with everything, she's going to be like, you know what? Like, I need you to step back a little bit.
Tell me about Ruthie. Speaking of best friends, Ruthie is a character in the book, but she wasn't always a character in the book.
She was in the book, but not as much. And I turned in the first draft, and my editor said, I really think we need more Ruthie. And I was pretty hesitant about this because, that's my friendship. It's like, it's writing about something that's real and that is like still super important to me and is sustaining to me. And so I didn't want to jeopardize that. But of course I asked Ruthie, and she said, there's nothing I'm more proud of than being your best friend. Like, go for it. And so I did. I added her a lot more in the book, which I think is wonderful. And I hope I get across how smart and funny she is, and just how we've developed this friendship where we really know that we'll be there for each other no matter what.
How did you guys meet, and how did your friendship develop?
We met at Details at the Men's Magazine that we were both working at. And it was in this atmosphere of like, you don't really question the male editors, you just go along with what they want. And Ruthie, we were having a disagreement, but I couldn't really voice, what I felt was wrong with the article we were putting together. And Ruthie did, and she stood up for me and backed my opinion, which really made me look at her and be like, I'm super impressed that she did that. And so I really respected that. And then also we sat by each other, and she's so funny, and I would just listen to her stories, or just like, we'd just comment back and forth all day. And for the first time I was like, I really would like this girl to like me. Like I wanted to be her friend.
It can be a little bit like meeting a new romantic partner, can't it? Because it's like the flirtation, you talk about the seduction, wanting them to like you.
Yeah, I think it's a courtship. It's platonic, but you're very willing to be like, do you want to go get a drink? Or, like, do you want to do this thing that I like that maybe I don't know if you like yet, and you're trying to show each other your best sides of yourself. And I think, and it's also fun. It's really joyful when you find someone that you can relate to and they relate back to you. Like, anyone you meet in life that's like that, it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, sparking that connection. And also there's the flirty banter and the texting.
Yeah, totally. It's like, I have a new friend. There's just a great feeling about that.
You and Ruthie started as work wives, which is something that we've sort of an expression that's entered the lexicon relatively recently.
Yeah, it really has.
Work wives can be a particular type of friend. Tell me a little bit about how work wives sort of factor into female friendship.
It depends, I guess. I actually, I have a work wife, and had a work wife at a newspaper I worked at, and she is Australian. Her name is Carmel Maloney, if she is listening. And she was in the U.S. on a work visa, and she didn't know anyone. She didn't know anyone we worked with. She didn't have any friends. She didn't know anyone in New York. And so, she really reached out to me in the office. We sat next to each other, and the office was very cramped. And so we were literally on right next to each other. And she really made a friend of me. It was like she wanted to know, where do I go? What do I do? How do I deal with this American way of doing things? And so initially we became very traditional, work. We would go get coffee or a snack or like go for a quick walk around the building if we needed a break. But then it definitely delved more, because it was another male-dominated office. So she would be like, well, I'm uncomfortable with the way this male editor spoke to me, or I would say the same thing. And we really backed each other in that way and being like, we have each other. I know how you're feeling, and we can stand up to the male editors together. So I think that's the best case. I do think it's hard if you feel competition with your work wife. I mean, I didn't with Carmel, but I have heard of that too. And that can be tough because, you know, it's work. It's still a business, and everyone is mostly concerned about themselves.
When you become an adult, the idea of making new friends, it's something that a lot of women talk about, and a lot of women talk to us about it. What's the best way, do you find, in your experience and talking to all the women that you have, in terms of making new friendships as an adult?
Well, what experts say is the number one way to make friends, honestly, is just repeated interaction with that person, which is why we tend to make friends at work or in school, in our neighborhoods, or if it's another mom you see at the playground. It's just seeing that person over and over. But you also have to put yourself out there. Like, you do have to say, would you like to do this with me? Or, you know, we should exchange numbers. Or you have to take that leap that will actually then form the friendship. But I mean, sometimes people don't give back too. You know, you could ask someone for a drink and they might go, but then you might never hear from them again. So it's tough. It is tough.
The average age for getting married has gotten older. How do you think that's impacted on female friendship?
I think it's huge. I think it's one of the reasons that we are seeing women saying, my friends mean so much to me, and wanting to talk about that and wanting to say how much their friends are their support system. And I think, you know, women have always been close, but now you have this additional maybe 10 years where you're single. And so it doesn't make any sense when you get married to be like, okay, now I'm just with my romantic partner, because why would you drop these friends who you've been so close to for so long? So there's not that immediate switch from, you know, your childhood friends to your romantic partner anymore. There's these years where you depend on your adult friendships. And
there's sort of a movement towards friends as family, isn't there? You talked to
for sure.
Amina Tussaud as one of the women you interviewed. She hosts a podcast called Call Your Girlfriend, and she has a very sort of, I guess, high-profile public friendship with a journalist called Anne Friedman. Tell me what she told you about friendship and the role it plays in her life.
She is one of the more vocal people about the idea that we really need to give these friendships a place, you know, in society and just legally, with the same importance that our other, like our blood and legal relationships have. Like, she makes the point that for her 401k, she wants to put her friend as the beneficiary of it, but there's no box for friend. You know, you can write in anyone's name you want, but then it says relationship too, and there's no box for friend. Or even like when you're filling out your emergency contact at the doctor, it'll say relationship too. It'll be like parent, you know, spouse, whatever, but it doesn't say friend. And if we make those kind of changes, they're not huge, but they do help elevate friendship and say this is a really important relationship to many, many people. And there's no reason we should treat it as this lower level relationship.
And Amina's recently been battling cancer, and she sort of talks to you about how, or she's spoken to you since about how when she's had women come to visit her close friends, and the doctors or the nurses will say, oh, are you two married? Are you dating? And she's like, no, but this is my person. It doesn't mean that our relationship is anything less just because we're not sleeping together, essentially.
Exactly. Like, the more we see women depending on other women, the more it's just in our face that these relationships are just as essential.
I suppose especially in this era of social media where friend, particularly Facebook friend, has almost redefined and diluted that word to become almost meaningless, isn't it? Like, I've got Facebook friends that I can't even remember ever meeting.
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting aspect of this, because when I was first thinking about the book, I thought, oh, you know, we call every single person we're connected with on Facebook our friend. But I don't know. I think that's just become a little bit like in the woodwork, basically, like that. We know those people aren't our real friends.
But it's like, you know, the Eskimos have 100 different words for ice, but we don't seem to have those different levels of word for friend, do we? What are
Yes.
some of the words that women spoke to you about in your book?
Oh, right. I think women do, because of exactly what you're saying, women do want to set apart their friendships. They're very close friendships. And a lot of them are not going against, but saying like, I would like a different word other than best friend, because, some people overuse best friend. And so, there's soulmate. I call Ruthie my soulmate. There's person, which comes from Grey's Anatomy. And a lot of people love person. There's ride or die. I heard a new one the other day that I like. It's lifey, which is put together on like life partner and wife. So like lifey, which I really liked that one. There are so many. And I think that's great because, you can use the language to also make the point that this person is so important to me in a way that I don't have, a standardized way to show. So I'm going to come up with a way to show you myself.
Can you have multiple besties and multiple persons, or is it sort of a singular phenomenon, more like a husband or wife?
I think you can. I don't see why not. Mindy Kaling says best friend is a tier, which I agree with. I don't see why not. I mean, I think people are capable of having several important relationships, so there's no reason it has to be one person. And that's kind of what's so great about friendship, is it's not that restricted.
You mentioned the idea of my person and Christina and Meredith from Grey's Anatomy. Can you tell that story of that very famous episode?
Yeah, I think it was in the second season. I want to say it was in the very beginning of the second season. And Christina and Meredith were having a drink after work, as they often did. And Christina had told Meredith that she was pregnant and had was going to get an abortion. And she showed up at the bar, and they were talking, and she said, "Hello.
You are my person. You will always be my person."
And then you see Meredith put her arm around Christina and them just have a moment, and it's really great. And then for the rest of the show, the show was about this fraught romance between Meredith Grey and Derek Shepherd, but really the emotional core was very, very often Meredith and Christina, and it was just a wonderful friendship. And I think even the creator said, I think Meredith and Christina are soulmates. She might be in love with Derek, but the great relationship is Meredith and Christina.
You write a lot about pop culture and different depictions of friendship in pop culture. Perhaps one of the earliest I can remember is Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
Which was sort of, again, an unlikely friendship between a sort of a housewife and someone who was, a bit more of a partier, and they go on this adventure together. What are some of the other, perhaps more recent, really standout depictions of female friendship that have changed the way we've seen, the idea of female friends?
Bridesmaids was big.
I just wanted to say really quick that you're so special to me because, one of the reasons is because I've known you my whole entire life, and you've really helped shape who I am.
It is about a wedding, sort of, but really the central relationship is between the bride and her best friend. And in that movie, you really saw a more nuanced version of female friendship. It wasn't that they always loved each other. It wasn't that they were always fighting. They were real women trying to deal with how their lives were turning out and staying friends. And I mean, it was one of the first movies in a long time, like since Thelma and Louise. We had a big drought before we got a friendship movie again, and that was one of the first for sure.
TV's probably been a little bit better.
It has.
At depicting it more regularly. I'm thinking of Friends, and then Sex and the City was big. I mean, Sarah Jessica Parker always said that the fifth character in that show was New York, but it was really about female friendship. It wasn't so much about Big and about Aiden and the men in their lives.
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't know enough while watching this. I didn't know to look at it that critically when I was first watching it, but it's supposed to be an anti-romantic comedy, and that's what the creator set out to do, because the romantic comedies in general, the best friend disappears as soon as she is solidly with the guy, then you never see the best friend again in the traditional romantic comedy. But in Sex and the City, it was really just the four friends. I mean, there were always men, but, they were always there. And they weren't afraid to be like, I think this guy is bad for you, or don't go back to him, or I don't know what you're doing with this relationship. It was a much more honest friendship.
And then Girls, I think, was another really interesting depiction of female friendship that was different again.
Yeah, I mean, I think Girls, as we sort of saw when it ended, was about 4 women who shouldn't have been friends. I mean, that was a bad friendship that they carried on from college into their young adulthood that they probably shouldn't have. And then you see them all go their separate ways, and it makes sense, which is also the depiction that, we never get, which is great. You do see friendships break up, but this does happen. And so that was another way to look at it.
Do you have dreams of starting your own business, or you just want to take a peek behind the curtain to see how other people have done it? Then make sure you subscribe to the latest show from the Mamamia podcast network, Lady Startup. I'm Rachel Corbett, and each week I'll be sitting down with some of the most successful and inspiring female entrepreneurs to find out how they built their businesses from the ground up. Hear Carmen's founder, Carolyn Cresswell, talk about the tough early days of building a business.
I was honestly waking in the night thinking, how am I going to pay bills? And I'll never forget what it felt like in those days.
Listen to Janine Alice talk about how she juggled motherhood with building a brand like Boost Juice.
I was the one that the mothers hung out with at school to feel good about their parenting.
Join me for Lady Startup. Kicking off April 3rd, you can subscribe in iTunes or wherever you listen to this show.
There's no blueprint for ending friendships or for friendships running their course. I mean, there's that famous saying, friends come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Not everyone is a lifetime friend. So how do you navigate, I guess, the reason and the season friends?
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough because we don't have any rituals for friendships ending. When you break up with a guy, you call your friend, you cry on the floor, you eat ice cream. We have these rituals that help us get over these things. But when a friendship ends and you might say to your other friend, like, I'm not speaking to this friend, or this friend is moving away. I think a lot of times women know how important that is, but in generally accepted, the thinking is like, well, you just find another friend, you move on. But I don't think that's the case for many, many women. And it's just they have to process that friendship ending the same way you do a romantic relationship.
Sometimes, though, it's kind of messy because sometimes you will have a big falling out, but other times you just sort of grow apart, which can almost be weirder and harder because there's that idea that female friendships have to last forever. Do you think that can be a bit of a trap?
I think it's a little strange because, again, like with romantic relationships, you wouldn't never just grow apart from your boyfriend. I mean, you would grow apart from him, but you would have that conversation. Yeah. Like, we're breaking up. We're not boyfriend, girlfriend anymore. Or you're getting a divorce or whatever it is. Like you have that finality. And with friendships, they sometimes just slide away. And you think, like, what happened? We never ended this, or one of you still wants to be friends, and it's just this. We just don't have any formalized process for this.
It's true, and often it won't. Just like in a romantic relationship, often one person will grow off in a different direction, and the other person won't want to let it go, or won't.
Totally.
Yeah, it can be sort of unclear. Another real pop culture moment in friendships was a few years ago with Taylor Swift and the idea of the hashtag Girl Squad and hashtag Squad Goals. How did that kind of fit into the narrative of female friendship?
I had the idea for the book at the time. Squad Goals was really, really popular. So that kind of kicked off my thinking that I'm seeing female friendship everywhere. But it's interesting because that was such a superficial depiction. I'm not against squad goals. Like, I think that it was a good thing to see images of women getting along just in general, because that's not the norm. That's not what we usually saw. But it was quite, it was just a pretty picture of women who usually looked alike, doing something cheesy that you don't really do every day. And so I started from there. But I think that female friendship, as it's been a couple of years, has gotten to a place where it's more serious. Of course we still grip and grin for the camera and love to pose together, but it's also, we're saying like, no, this is the person who, I tell when anything bad happens to me, or she has my spare keys, or, I'm taking her to Thanksgiving, or we're going on vacation together, or just these things that aren't just a photo opportunity.
Another friendship that I would say is probably the most high-profile depiction of female friendship in the world now, which would be the ultimate friendship goals, would be Oprah and Gayle King, her bestie. Can you tell me a little bit about how that friendship has kind of come to symbolize so much about female friendship?
I mean, when I was little, that was the only public friendship I saw. Like, they were out there enthusing about each other really early. I can't remember the exact number, but I do know Oprah's been on the Oprah Show the most, of course, but Gayle's been on it the second most number of times. And she was always there. She was always showing up. Oprah told viewers about Gayle's personal life. Like, it was just this very public friendship at a time when there weren't any other public friendships.
Which kind of brings me to something that I want to wrap up with, which is the current climate with Me Too and Time's Up and Trumpism. What sort of effect do you think that's been having on female friendship and the relationships between women?
I think that what that has done is make these bonds more public. I thought my book was finished before the Me Too movement started, but I actually think it's part of it, because I think women had these private bonds, and we said, text me when you get home, and we knew how much we meant to each other, but it wasn't necessarily something we threw out there to the world, mostly because men would just knock it down. And so now women are stepping up together publicly and saying, like, no, I have her back. She has mine. This is here. It's always been here. And now we're showing it to you.
So that idea of women sort of supporting each other and standing together rather than being able to be divided and conquered by men, is that how it's sort of playing out, do you think?
Yeah, being unafraid to support each other.
You can find Kayleen's book online at Booktopia or at apple.co/Mamamia. And if this episode made you think of your lifey, your ride or die, your BFF, your person, send it to them. Tag them. Sharing is caring. It helps them and it helps more people find out about this podcast. No Filter is produced by my dear friend, Eliza Ratliff. And I will see you at home on the homepage at mamamia.com.au.